Hello, friends. This is Marina Shepelsky, U.S. immigration lawyer for over 20 years, and I'm here today with an amazing guest, Inna Revutsky, a friend of mine, but also an amazing psychiatric expert. She's a nurse practitioner specializing in doing evaluations for the psychiatric elements of our cases, especially the humanitarian cases. For example, VAWA, and that's what we're going to focus today. VAWA stands for Violence Against Women and the Men Act, and we file a special form, I-360, but it's not just about the form, as you guys always hear from us. It's also about the evidence, the proofs that you put in the package, and Ina's proofs are her reports, which are excellent, and we'll get right into it. So, Inna, as you know, VAWA focuses on abuse or the bad marriage. Sometimes it's actually through your kids who are over 21, US citizen kids, and they also treat you badly. They abuse you. The word abuse in some people's mind doesn't have a meaning, or sometimes people think, oh, it's physical abuse, like somebody has to beat me, so I'm not eligible. Is this true? What kind of abuse do you see in your cases?
So, in our domestic violence cases, like you said, abuse is not always physical. We very, very frequently get this question. I don't have evidence. I don't have wounds. I don't have black and blues. I don't have a police report. Was I abused? How am I going to, prove that I was abused? And I always tell my clients the same thing. Abuse is not always physical. It could be emotional. The person that you're with could be controlling you. They could be monitoring every step that you make. They could be abusing you financially, maybe taking all your money, or making financial decisions without including you in those decisions. All of this are forms of abuse. And when we document it in our medical evaluations, our psychiatric evaluations, we're able to help the cases that don't always have the physical evidence of medical reports, police reports, hospital visits. Remember, abuse is not always physical.
Have you heard of digital abuse? Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, digital abuse is when your spouse or your kid who's over 21 installs an app in your phone and monitors everywhere where you go, or they check your social media and monitor everyone you're connecting with. Maybe your family is back home and you're using WhatsApp or Viber or some of those other apps to connect with your family, and your partner that you are doing this case against is monitoring everyone that you're speaking with and everywhere where you're going using digital technology.
So it's become, so abuse has moved into 21st century. So it's not just physical, as we learned, and it's not just emotional, where they humiliate you, put you down, call your names, but now it's digital. They do stuff with your phone. They monitor your phone, your like videos with your family and friends. Is it true that when somebody doesn't want you talking to your friends or your kids or your family, that's also a type of abuse?
Absolutely. It's a form of manipulation. It's a form of isolating their prey. They isolate you so they have full control over your mind. They have full control over where you're going and who you're talking to. All of these are forms of abuse that are not very talked about. They're not very self-explanatory, but this is something that we focus on in our reports, and it's very helpful.
We've had cases that when the client comes to us, they tell us that they're in a bad marriage, they want to file for VAWA, they're not divorced yet, they're still living with their partner. And by the way, sometimes it's not always opposite gender partners. Sometimes marriage could be between two men, two women, or other identifying, gender people. But they won't tell us much. Can you help with something like that? Like we can't get, it's very emotionally draining. It's very traumatizing for some people to talk about what they lived through with this US citizen spouse. Is that something that you help with?
We deal with this again very frequently. People call, and one of the first questions we ask is, do you have your declaration? Do you have your affidavit ready? And people stumble. They tell me, well, I have it in my mind, or I know what happened, or I don't have much written. We have a very organized approach in helping our clients develop their stories. We have a very in-depth intake that focuses on the emotional aspects of their case. So an attorney will focus on facts: when you moved to the US, maybe when you met your spouse, do you have letters of, witness letters, and other stuff. Our intake specifically focuses on when you started feeling uncomfortable with your spouse. When did abuse begin? Were you terrified of coming home? Were you maybe not interested in going home after work? We really focus on a lot of the detail that is included in the report. And very often attorneys use some of the things from our report in when they're submitting the case, because this is more of an intimate setting. It's not always a one conversation, it's several conversations. And I really know how to ask questions to have people open up to me. And this is my expertise. This is what I do.
This is what we've had. We've had cases where we couldn't get much details out of them, but then you do your evaluation, and when I read the report, or other lawyers read the reports, we see details in them that the client never even mentioned or discussed with us. Not because they're lying, but because we're not experts at getting somebody to flush out their emotional story, which could be very painful. And I know that, we're not trained to ask the right questions, and you are. So I definitely see a great benefit to someone hiring a psychiatric expert like you, not just to prove their case, but to flush out, like to show their case in the first place. Because every VAWA case needs a strong story explaining that, first of all, the spouses were married and they married for love. What happened? Did they live together? How did they even start dating? Who proposed? Where did they move to? Who lived with them? Who was a witness to this? And so on. And you help get all the details out, not just of the good stuff, but the bad stuff. And it's super important. We have already won many cases together. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, so people understand that, okay, you might not have a police report or an order of protection or a restraining order, depending what state you live. And by the way, is it true that you work with all the 50 states?
Yes, we work in all 50 states. These are federal cases. Of course, I'm licensed in New York and New Jersey. I'm able to prescribe medications. I very, very often, if I see someone in high distress or in high anxiety states, unable to sleep, depressed, I actually refer people out to get medications. And then once we receive that report, I include that the person is taking medications to manage their symptoms, especially if they never had to take medications before.
I see. All right. So this is important. Not only you're going to get a report, but for some people who have very acute symptoms, like very bad trauma, you will probably be referred to a doctor and get medications. And I, as the attorney, will ask you to print out the list of your medications, and we will include them to show that your relationship caused you. That's what led you to be sick and to have to take medications. So is it true also that if they make you, well, first of all, you mentioned something. You said if you don't want to go home after work to your spouse, and you married them for love, but now it's a year later and you feel like you don't want to go home to the spouse, they make you feel upset. Is that something we can base a VAWA case on?
It's one of the signs to my client to know that they're in a situation that's not comfortable, because we want to avoid painful, uncomfortable situations. So if you're in a relationship and you notice little signs and symptoms, like, for example, you don't want to go home to be next to this person, or maybe you don't want to have sex with them because you feel maybe they're making you do something you're not comfortable with.
Is that
Or,
abuse when your spouse is making?
absolutely. I see it all the time.
Hmm.
People who move to the United States move from all different countries. They have all different cultural beliefs. And sometimes they end up in a relationship with the person who makes them do things they're not comfortable with.
And do you have to, like some people think if I'm married, I have to have, the sexual relations with my spouse or I will get in trouble. I have clients like that. Is that true?
No, you don't have to. Like, your body belongs to you. It's okay to say no. When you're tired, you need to rest. And if your spouse makes you do anything that you're not comfortable with, including sexual things, that's all part of abuse. These are things that we cover in our reports. Like, I recently had a case, and the woman's husband wanted to give her massages, and she had chronic back pain, and every time he gave her a massage he made her back worse. And she was like, is this considered an abusive behavior? I was like, this is considered an intrusive behavior. He is intruding on your personal physical boundaries. This is something that when you say no, no means no. And if you're not feeling comfortable, you don't have to let him massage your back. You don't have to let him touch you or her. You don't have to do things sexually that you feel uncomfortable with. And that's just how it is. Yeah.
Is it, just to wrap up here, I also want to say that if somebody is holding your green card over your head constantly in bed or otherwise, could that be considered a symptom of trauma, of abuse?
It happens again all the time. They will play this game where they do one step forward, two steps back, one step forward, two steps back, and you feel like a pendulum. You feel emotionally unstable. Yes.
They make you go up and down.
Up and down, closer, further. They ignore you if you don't do things that they want you to do. Again, that case with the woman whose husband wanted to give her massage, every time she didn't want to do something, he would ignore her for days. So yeah, all of that are forms of abuse. And sometimes it's hard to believe after the honeymoon stage, after you get married, the abuse starts slowly creeping into the relationship. It's really hard to admit that, oh my God, I am in an abusive marriage. And you start remembering how it was wonderful in the past, but then you are faced with this new reality of your partner changing, and it just becomes very, very confusing.
I just think that if you are unhappy and your spouse makes you very upset, they ignore you, they withhold sex, they withhold love, they hold your green card over your head, they control you, you might not even understand the word abuse or you're in an abusive marriage. But if you are experiencing the things that we talked about, if your spouse is just making you unhappy, you could win a green card. You could get VAWA approved. It will take time. You will need evidence. You will need witness letters. You'll definitely need a psychiatric evaluation. But at the end, it's worth it because you won't need your spouse to sponsor you for the green card anymore. They will not get in trouble. They will not find out. Nobody's going to call them for an interview, although you might have an interview for your green card when the time comes. So this is a really great process for people who are in unhappy marriage, or your son or daughter over 21, citizen son or daughter, is treating you badly, making you really, really upset. I want to say thank you to Inna for joining us today. Guys, our contact information is on the bottom of the screen, and call us anytime when you're ready to start legalizing in US. With Trump here very soon, this might be a really great option for you to get a green card and be the only person responsible for your own life. And for many people, that's a winning strategy. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.